Hello everyone, I welcome you all to the another online lecture of the series. Today we will be starting with the metabolism and we will be covering the introduction of metabolism. So before we start, let us understand what metabolism actually is. So it can be defined as the collection of chemical reactions that are going to take place in the body cell. Okay. So, for maintaining proper functions of the body, the cell needs to maintain its functions properly, first of all. So, hence, all the chemical reactions that will be occurring in the cell, within the cell, comes under the metabolism. And what metabolism is doing? Metabolism is converting the food we eat into the energy that is needed to perform different functions of the cell. Okay, so yes, metabolism is important when it comes to biochemistry. We have various cycles in it, but we will move on to the cycles later on. Today we will be covering the introduction portion only. Okay, so let us start with the types of metabolic pathways. So metabolic pathways, they are of three types basically, but all in all, we say that a pathway is catabolic when in the pathway the molecules are broken down because it has to give the energy. And we already know the energy in the biological system, it is always in the form of ATP. Okay, for example, when glucose is being oxidized, it gets converted to pyruvate, and further pyruvate gets converted to carbon dioxide and water, and lots of energy is produced. Okay, and in certain pathways within the cell, there are certain molecules that are being formed, and when the molecules will be formed, they will be utilizing the energy. Such molecules, when formed by certain pathways, these pathways are known as anabolic pathways. So when the complex molecules will be formed from the simpler ones and energy will be utilized, so the pathways will be known as anabolic pathways. All right, so the example is that the amino acid together join and forms the proteins. So now there are certain pathways, as we already know, science is always followed by exceptions. So there are the pathways which are, catabolic as well as anabolic. We will move on to it later on when we will discuss all the cycles. Okay, I'll teach you all the cycles and possibly with short codes. Okay, so there are certain pathways which functions both catabolically as well as anabolically. For example, Krebs cycle or the TCA cycle. Okay, so now let us understand that what are the goals of the metabolic reactions. So whenever it comes to all the catabolic reactions, so the goal of catabolic reactions is to convert the chemical potential energy contained in the food into ATP. Why into ATP? Because ATP is the universal energy currency of the cell. Okay, and when some or the other molecule is formed, that means the molecule will be formed in anabolic reaction, we see that the ATP is utilized. Okay, so as to synthesize the important molecules that are required by the body, the ATP is being utilized. All right, so let us now understand that how the ATP is going to give us energy. So this is the structure of ATP. ATP is adenosine triphosphate. You can see this is the adenine base. This is the sugar. This is the ribose sugar, and these are the three phosphate groups. So, adenosine triphosphate. So, now whenever the phosphate group is being cleaved or the ATP is being hydrolyzed, we will see in the backward direction. So it is mentioned in the backward direction that when this ATP will be broken down into ADP and one inorganic phosphate, large and large amount of energy will be released. So this energy will be utilized in various processes. All right. So when the energy will be released, the process is known as exergonic process. The process is known as exergonic process. Okay, because the energy is released, and the energy released will be utilized in some of the another process. Okay, and when the energy is utilized, the process is known as endergonic process. So now we say that every exergonic process in the metabolism is followed by every endergonic process. Okay, so now here, when the phosphoryl group will be added to ATP, it requires energy. All the endergonic processes, they require energy. And how will they require energy? They will require energy by in the form of ATP, in the form of ATP. So in the system, the every exergonic process, it is followed by every endergonic process. So let us now understand that how much energy do we get from the hydrolysis of 1 mole of ATP. So when 1 mole of ATP is hydrolyzes, the calculated energy delta G, which is the Gibbs free energy from 1 mole of ATP under the standard conditions, are minus 7.3 kilocalorie per mole or minus 30.5 kilojoule per mole. So these are the values which are calculated under the standard conditions. But whenever it comes to the hydrolysis of ATP in living cell, the energy gets almost doubled. So in the living cell, it's about 14 kilocalorie per mole, which is calculated as minus 57 kilojoule per mole. So you must know this, that what amount of energy is being liberated from the hydrolysis of 1 mole of ATP. Okay. So also we have to understand that all the metabolic reactions, they are regulated by the hormones. So let us understand that how the hormones, they regulate the all the metabolic reactions. Okay, although when we will be studying the various cycles, we will be visualizing that there are different regulatory steps in each of the cycle. Okay, there are different regulatory steps, but yes, hormones also plays the important role in stimulation and suppression of metabolic reactions. So let us move on to the estrogen and testosterone. So these are going to affect the metabolism by regulating the fat storage and muscle mass and energy expenditure. The estrogen hormone, it will promote the storage of fat, and the testosterone will be increasing the muscle mass and it will be reducing the fat. Okay, so both the hormones, the estrogen and the testosterone, they will be helping in preventing the metabolic dysfunction and age related metabolic disease if they are secreted in adequate levels. But if they are not secreted in adequate levels, okay, so they will impact the metabolism. Next important is the insulin, which we will also study when we will study the mechanism, that how the glucose enters inside the cell. So there is a full-fledged insulin dependent transport of glucose. Okay, so insulin, we already know it is being synthesized in the pancreas by the beta cells, and it regulates the blood level and use of glucose. And unless or until Insulin is there, the body will not be able to utilize the glucose. Okay, so insulin is important hormone, and when insulin is absent, it will going to lead in a condition known as diabetes. We already know. Another hormones are adrenaline. So adrenaline suppresses the secretion of insulin, which in turn will decrease the rate of glycolysis, the and it will promote the synthesis of glucagon. Okay, and when adrenaline is there in high amounts, the blood glucose level will be remaining sufficiently high for the certain duration. Okay, whenever adrenaline, they are also known as a flight and a fright hormone. गुस्सा नहीं करना है ज्यादा, है ना? फ्लाइट एंड फ्राइट हॉर्मोन्स. ऑल राइट. सो जब तक हमें गुस्सा आया हुआ है, इंसुलिन नहीं बन रही. Insulin is not being synthesized, and when insulin is not being synthesized, the glucose level will remain high. Okay, so cortisol's large amount of cortisol can also slow down the metabolism, and when the metabolism slows down, we can see that the body will not burn more calories and fat deposition will take place. Okay, next is the glucagon, and this glucagon hormone, it is antagonistic to insulin. Its function is antagonistic to insulin. Okay, so it is produced by alpha cells in the pancreas, and glucagon will be stimulating the breakdown of glycogen into glucose. And we will be understanding the roles of these hormones in each and every cycle, that what role a particular hormone is playing. Okay, so now let's move on to the overview of metabolism. Here we can see that when we are taking a balanced diet, we have carbohydrates in the form of chapati, in the form of rice. Okay, we have proteins in the form of meat, in the form of eggs, in the form of dal, lentils. We have fats in the form of oil, and in India especially in the form of ghee, although the ghee is adulterated, but we don't care. Okay, so these metabolism, they are connected. Let us start with the metabolism of carbohydrate. This is just the overview. We will be learning each and every cycle. Okay, so yes, the polysaccharides, the carbohydrates, they are converted into glucose, and glucose through the process of glycolysis is converted into pyruvate. Glucose is converted into pyruvate. Now this pyruvate, when oxygen is there, okay, under aerobic conditions, when oxygen is there, it will be converted into acetyl coenzyme A, and this acetyl coenzyme A will be entering into TCA cycle or the Krebs cycle, and further the reducing equivalents such as NAD, such as FAD, they will be entering into the electron transport chain and participating in the oxidative phosphorylation. Moreover, the acetyl coenzyme A here, which was produced as a result of the uh, carbohydrate metabolism. Okay, it was produced, this acetyl coenzyme A, it was produced as a result of carbohydrate metabolism. It goes and synthesize the lipids, lipogenesis. इसीलिए हम कहते हैं दैट बहुत ज़्यादा शुगर खाने से आपका फैट भी बढ़ जाता है. ओके, एंड दिस लिपोजेनेसिस, इट विल बी, दे विल बी कन्वर्टेड इनटू फ्री फैटी एसिड्स एंड ग्लिसरॉल. प्लीज करेक्ट, हियर इट इज acid, free fatty acid and glycerol, and further they will be converted into triglycerides. Okay, so this was about the carbohydrate metabolism. Now when the protein metabolism uh, play its role, there is first of all a deamination, transamination, and the amino acids, they are converted into keto acids. We know that proteins are polypeptide, and when they are hydrolyzed into smaller amino acid, these amino acid will be participating in deamination and then in transamination and converted into keto acid. These keto acids will either get converted into acetyl coenzyme A, or will enter the TCA cycle. Again, the TCA cycle will be, producing the reducing equivalents, the NAD, the FAD, okay, and they will be entering in the electron transport chain. All right. So now, when fat is being broken down, they are being broken down into triglycerides, free fatty acids, and these free fatty acids, they are being these free fatty acids, they are being, oxidized by beta oxidation. Okay, beta oxidation. And from beta oxidation, we will again be getting the acetyl coenzyme A. So this is the overview of metabolism. All right. So fat in turn is giving the acetyl coenzyme A. Carbohydrates is also giving the acetyl coenzyme A. Proteins are also giving the acetyl coenzyme A. And this acetyl coenzyme A, it is important precursor of the TCA cycle. And remember, in starvation, every organ survives on, yeah, you can say, whenever the body is in starvation, although the liver produces glucose, okay, but वो अपना काम किससे चलाएगा? जो एटीपी उसको टीसीए साइकिल से मिलेगी, वो ग्लूकोज बना बना के ब्लड में बाहर रिलीज करता रहेगा. सो दिस इज द ओवरव्यू ऑफ मेटाबॉलिज्म, एंड वी विल बी कवरिंग all these cycles. And we will be covering all these cycles that comes under all these metabolism. Okay, one thing more, the glucose, it comes from polysaccharide, as well as during starvation, when the glycogen is being broken down, then also the glycogen gives the glucose. And when the glucose is in excess, it forms the glycogen in the liver. So, these are very interesting cycles, and they are important for us. And ये हमें सोचने पे मजबूर करते हैं. See how efficient we are in terms of, organization. We are very much efficient. So that's all for today. In case if you want a lecture on any other topic, please comment down. Thank you so much. Stay tuned in.